Dear history enthusiasts, welcome to all of you. We will discuss one of the most controversial figures in history with you this evening, Napoleon Bonaparte. Truly, a very interesting man, Napoleon Bonaparte. Who was Napoleon Bonaparte today? What role did he play in history? How did he live? We will talk about this. A very colorful personality, a very interesting character. I don't know what you've heard or what you know about Napoleon until today, but I'm aware that you've heard some things in a sensational sense. He supposedly said money, 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 and armies march on their stomachs, and he would place his hand here and have his photo taken like this. Was he a Mason? Did he devote all his efforts to becoming an emperor? Were the French using him? Now look, just as in Turkey, when history is examined, how history and historical figures change shape according to people's thoughts, feelings, and ideologies. When you ask 10 people on the street about a person, half say they are destined for heaven and the other half for hell. In other words, they say good or bad. The same situation applies to Napoleon Bonaparte. A film was released in theaters. It was produced by Hollywood. Some of the producers and lead actors from the movie Gladiator, they took part in this film, and I went to watch it this evening. I am not just going to tell you about a Hollywood-made film. This evening, we will talk about the real Napoleon Bonaparte with you. When this film was released, it was very well received by the British. It was not liked at all by the French. Why? Well, because the British made the film. I mean, when I say the British made it, the Americans made it. The Americans, ultimately the French, will not like a film made by the Americans. Even though the independence of the 13th colony in America and its liberation from England was fervently supported by France. From the moment the United States began to fulfill its mission, it has always sided with England or England with America. Their interests have worked together. Because of this, the Americans, a film made indirectly by the English will not be liked by the French. Among those watching me right now, there may be some who have or have not been to France or have spoken with a French person. Generally, we in Turkey speak English with a foreigner. When you speak English with a French person, 60-70% of the time, that French person will not want to speak English with you. Even if they know English, they will either say they don't know it, turn their head and walk away, or find a third way to shut it up. They will continue with one or two simple sentences in English. Why? Because the English and the French have been eternal enemies. Meanwhile, your comments are coming in. Thank you very much. You have all sent your greetings. You are wishing a good evening. Thank you. Today, even though I won't touch on each comment individually to maintain the coherence of the topic, we will occasionally address these issues. For example, right at the beginning, there were those who mentioned Caesar Ahmed Pasha. Some said that the Ottoman defeat is not visible. Indeed, that's true. Look, today I will tell you about the real Napoleon Bonaparte, because ultimately we are neither English nor French. We will look from the outside, but we would have liked to see more Ottoman details in the film. This evening, you will see all of these. In other words, Napoleon's identity, personality, goals, loves, passions. As we discuss these, we will also analyze the life of the real Napoleon in the film. Look, Napoleon lived for 52 years. He lived in a very short span of 52 years. What do I know about 52 years? He fit a life of several centuries into it, just like our Emil Pasha. If you say Emil Pasha died at 41, most people would be surprised. Wait a minute, 41. Are you sure? Yes, Emil Pasha died at 41. Napoleon also died at 52. Indeed, they fit a life of several centuries into half a century. And we will discuss, Dijin, step by step, what they did during this period. I think it will be a very enjoyable program. Rest assured. Well, because ultimately it concerns a period that involves the entire world history. If Napoleon Bonaparte hadn't existed, today's democratic countries, these royal countries of Europe, wouldn't have turned to democracy. Look, let me say that first. Most of us might see Napoleon as a dictator, as a man who only cared about his position, but without this intriguing personality, modern Europe today would not have been able to be established. If I told you that many systems belonging to the modern world were introduced during Napoleon's era through the efforts of him and his team, many of you might be very surprised. We will occasionally touch on these topics. We will see his contributions to modern Europe. Look, it's very simple. Today, the provincial system, province, district, village, was established by Napoleon, first in France, in Europe, with the appointment of governors and village headmen being done by Napoleon's order. What would you say? If I told you that the French civil code he established is used today by a quarter of the world, with slight modifications, almost close to its original form, what would you say? Look, including us, including Turkey, he was a very interesting man. Fate had it that just as he was about to enter the service of the Ottoman Empire, fate suddenly turned him into an adversary of the Ottomans. I am very curious, if he had come to the Ottoman country, what kind of services would he have provided us? How would he have shaped our Imperial School of Engineering and our Artillery Corps? Because he brought completely different innovations to the history of world wars and world war strategies. And for this reason, look at how all the European states, almost forming the most powerful coalitions of European states, repeatedly, as a single France, he had the power to defeat the armies of 8 to 10 different countries. He had the power to defeat both at the same time. Napoleon Bonaparte, of course, Napoleon himself. I am not a fan of Napoleon here or anything. As a straightforward historian, I will tell you both the good and the bad. But let's not forget this while explaining that a person, if they wish, can mobilize large masses and achieve great successes. But we will all see, in the person of Napoleon Bonaparte, how one can also ruin an entire country by being intoxicated with worldly power. Today, as you know, in the face of a tiny Gaza, all the large Muslim countries have become mute. They stand there in shame. If a Napoleon had emerged from among all these Muslim countries, from among so many Muslims, it wouldn't be the case. He would have saved not only Gaza, but many others in the oppressed Islamic world. So, I'm somewhat stating the conclusion at the beginning, but when Napoleon set out, he didn't think of his own pocket first. Yes, later he turned to his pocket, and with a great disappointment, he perished and disappeared. I wish he had always, he has a famous saying, he said he worked for a better France. I wish he could have always been a faithful man to this sentence. He couldn't. He was corrupted. Applause, stage, money, power poisoned him too. And he was one of the most talented men the world has ever seen. A very serious historian has departed from among us. Now, the film is actually, the cinema film is a long one. It lasts more than 2 hours. But when you get absorbed in the film, you definitely don't feel bored. The film, of course, tells the life of Napoleon. It lasts more than 2 hours, but it tells Napoleon's life in a skipping manner. It's impossible to cover everything from A to Z. There are also aspects of the film that I criticize. They tried to focus more on Napoleon as a human being. This is the right approach. This turned out well, but while portraying Napoleon as a human, they exaggerated some aspects. Sometimes they have unfairly vilified Napoleon. When you look at it, they portrayed him as a sadistic, dictatorial, ambitious creature. His relationships with women, his relationships with people. Well, did Napoleon cause the death of 3 million people during his lifetime? Of course he did. But ultimately, he was a man who repeatedly sought peace. It was primarily England, among others, that repeatedly dragged him into war. Powers like Austria, Prussia, and Russia, led by those concerned with their thrones, they were the royal families. If those royal families hadn't been concerned with their thrones, these 3 million people wouldn't have died. So there's no need to put all the blame on Napoleon here. Now, if you look, what is Enver Pasha in our Republic of Turkey? He is the scapegoat. You put all the blame on Enver Pasha. For instance, how many thousands of our soldiers died on the Caucasus front? Damn Enver Pasha. And in the Gallipoli campaign, he was again the chief of general staff in charge of the entire army. But his name is not even mentioned in Gallipoli. No one even cares. It means that history is also being told biasedly in Turkey. Is that correct? Of course it's correct. It is told in a biased way. If Ataturk and Enver Pasha had a good relationship, we would also describe Enver Pasha properly and nicely. Because they did not have a good relationship, the Republic, since Enver Pasha is not the founder of our Turkey, and because he was a rival, we describe Enver Pasha very poorly today. I am not a fan of Enver Pasha or anything. How is biased history told? Who is glorified while others are overshadowed? This is what I am trying to explain. From whom do we learn about Napoleon's history? From the British. Because we learn it that way, Napoleon appears to us as a dictator. Napoleon asked for peace multiple times, but the British monarchy, the Prussian monarchy, the Austrian monarchy, and the Russian Tsardom were terrified. This man will unseat us from our thrones. I mean, when I say this man, the French Revolution. And that's why they declared war against the French Revolution. Who was the sword, the commander? The leader of the army of the French Revolution? Napoleon Bonaparte. Are you ready? It was a long introduction. Let's get started. Yes. On August 15th, 1769, he was born Dundee in Corsica. By the way, where is Corsica? Let's show you right away. In the meantime, I have prepared something very nice for you. From the Google Earth map, step by step for you, I will show you these places. Look, our blue ball in space. Our world is coming. We zoom in like this right away. Corsica. Look, this is Corsica. Everyone recognized Italy, right? The boot. You already know France. Almost all of these yellow dots you see here are the most important points in Napoleon's life. There are many more points, but somewhere around here, look right here. The end of the film will finish here. Just so you know, we will come here later. Wow, right here. But first, let Napoleon come into the world. Napoleon Bonaparte was born as a child of a Corsican family. When he was born here on the island, you see, in the island country of Corsica, it was under the rule of the Genoese state. Genoa is right across from it. Look, as you can see Genoa right from here. At that time, there was no state called Italy. There were small kingdoms here. There was the Kingdom of Genoa. On the other side, there was the Kingdom of Venice. When you look, there was the Kingdom of Naples. Down here, there was the Kingdom of Naples. There were many such small kingdoms here. In those days, it was connected to the Kingdom of Genoa. He was born as a child of a Corsican family in Corsica. His father was a lawyer, his mother was a housewife, but she was a very disciplined woman, and he received his education under her strict management. He received his initial family education and upbringing. Napoleon Bonaparte in this way. Yes, let's look at Corsica like this. After seeing it up close, let's also see his mother and father. Normally, his father was a Corsican nationalist. He was striving for the independence of Corsica. Look, now you say it's under Genoa. It was governed as city-states like that. Italy. One of these city-states was Genoa. The Corsicans were also saying, why are we dependent on Genoa? Can't we be a state on our own? They were saying it was the same in Germany. There were principalities made up of many city-states like this. And eventually, he was born as the child of a Genoese nationalist. A year after he was born, France took over Corsica. You can already see France. There is Monaco here. Marseille is over there. In between, there's Toulon. Upwards, there's Lyon. You are seeing France. France took over Corsica. Napoleon Bonaparte tried very hard to present himself as French while he was Corsican, just like Hitler tried to present himself as German while he was Austrian. He even delayed his birth by a year, meaning he showed it later. Date. He recorded himself as if he was born after France's invasion of Corsica. In fact, his name was Napoleone de Bonaparte. He translated this Bonaparte name into French. Especially after his 20s, he started signing his name and surname, his signature, in French instead of Italian. Of course, the mother and father. After France's invasion of Corsica, especially the father, adopted a pro-French policy. And in 1771, the Corsicans, that is the French, declared him and his family as French nobility. Look, 769. 716. He was born in the year Napoleon Bonaparte In 1821, at the age of as law 52, he closed his eyes to this life. His father, after being declared a French noble, decided to use his connections in France to have his sons study in Paris. Look, this is Napoleon Bonaparte's brother, Joseph Bonaparte. After Napoleon Bonaparte took control of everything in France, on one hand, he was dealing with Spain, on another hand, Italy, and on another hand, the territories of present-day Belgium, although there was no country called Belgium at that time. And on another hand, when he conquered Austria and established a vast French empire, he first made his brother Joseph Bonaparte the King of Naples. Then he declared him the King of Spain. They don't get along well, but in the end, he did declare his brother a king. So, along with his brother, they are sent to a region called Autumn during their childhood years. There, they receive a religious education. Right after that, for example, this is very important. Later, let me show you on the map. Yes, let's spread out into France like this. Look, this is the autumn we mentioned. Let's see the map of France like this. The current map of France today. Where is Paris located here? Paris is located up here. This is the place you see. He receives a religious education here. After that, they send him to Brienne. This is the place you see. Here he receives his first military training. He receives his first military training. Here, when he was a small child, his teachers, who followed him at school, wrote about him. They say that even while playing snowball, he was unmatched in organizing his friends. Even in these were third grade students. Imagine third grade, elementary third, with 10th grade students. What is 10? High school students, that is almost high school. 2, high school 1, high school 2. Students, 10th. They once played snowball with 10th grade students. They organized their tiny classmates, and they beat the high schoolers. They organize, and they beat the high schoolers. It means that if a child is going to be something, it shows from their childhood what they will become. Indeed, in his history, he has won almost all of the dozens of battles he fought with a small number of forces against a large number of forces, even when he was alone, simultaneously. He was able to defeat the armies of 3, 4, 5, 7 different countries. At the same time, a strategic genius, Napoleon Bonaparte. Yes, truly so. It's even very interesting. His father sends him to Paris at the end. I know this school very well. Now, I have been to France many times until today for a conference. Whenever a Turkish association in France invites me to a conference, I go early in the morning on the day of the conference by plane or the day before. Years ago, on another trip, I went with a few books that described Paris street by street. I said that they picked me up from the airport early in the morning. They said, "Professor, your hotel is ready. Would you like to rest at the hotel?" Until the evening. Generally, those who go to Europe for a conference or a concert, I won't name anyone here, love to sleep at the hotel. They also have a coffee for half an hour on the Champs-Élysées, eat a pastry, tiramisu. Then they sleep at the hotel until the evening. They either watch movies on their laptops or chat with their wives. Look, I won't name names. If I were to name names here, the ratings would skyrocket instantly. I know a lot of names you see from the people I went to Europe with for concerts or conferences. I could never be one of them. I mean, does a person go to Paris and just sleep in the hotel? I just can't understand those friends. What do I usually do? I wander around from early morning until evening. If someone from the organization team wants to join me, they can walk with me. Or if there's no one, I don't really need anyone anyway. I'm someone who explores and guides others through the streets of Paris, and I go out and wander on my own. That was more than 15 years ago. I really overdid it that day. I mean, I walked from one side of Paris to the other until evening. I will never forget it. By evening, I couldn't even put my heels on the ground anymore. Like that, it hurt with every step, and the pain was overwhelming. The pain, I had walked to that extent. My feet were swollen like that. I never forget that day I also visited this school. This school is called Militar. I mean, the military school. Napoleon Bonaparte studied here, a military school established by the royalty. This is a 2-year artillery school. The first of the 2 years, he studies the first year, and 2, his father dies. When his father dies, the support ends, the money runs out. Napoleon Bonaparte finishes the school, which he would complete in 2 years, in 1 year after his father dies. In 1 year, because in the second year, he doesn't have the means or opportunity to study here. It's not possible. It's truly a very interesting situation. No, it just doesn't happen. Of course, after receiving artillery training, he returns to Corsica. In Corsica, the Republic comes together. Look, Napoleon Bonaparte didn't become a French revolutionary just because the French Revolution happened and he saw money and an opportunity here. He was already an enemy of the monarchy. He didn't like the monarchy from his youth. And he was a Jacobin. Do you know what Jacobin means? It means for the people, despite the people. Those who act for the people, despite the people, are called Jacobins. Well, they think of doing good for the people, but do not do it together with the people. They do it by dictating to the people. In this sense, when we look at the history of our country, you can see different names that could be called Jacobin. For example, our leaders in the history of the Republic can also be considered Jacobin to some extent. Why? Because, for instance, if they had left it to the people, a significant portion of the people would say the Sultanate should continue Rauf Orbay. Refet Bence, Kadın Karabekir, they all said, let the Sultanate continue. They were saying, our people understand this form of governance, they like this governance. Atatürk, in a sense, was also a Jacobin for the people, despite the people. What did he say? The people's, what is good or bad for them? He would say, I know better than the people. These are, and he acted in that way. And he revealed what was in his mind step by step. Look, here Atatürk did well. We are not discussing what he did poorly. We are discussing Jacobinism. Napoleon Bonaparte was a Jacobin in this sense, and he was saying that the people do not know, do not understand. They are ignorant. I know well how they should be governed, and I will dictate to the people the understanding of governing them properly by force, he said. And he accepted this by saying so. And in this way, there was an understanding of a period. He tried to do this in Corsica, but he couldn't succeed in Corsica. When he couldn't succeed, in those days, 1800, the French Revolution of 1789 occurred. When the revolution happened in France, Napoleon Bonaparte suddenly turned to the French Revolution. This was what I wanted to do all along. And it was achieved in France. Long live the revolution. Long live the rules of the revolution, he said. And quickly moved from Corsica to France, because in those days, France would need Napoleon. Look, when the French Revolution happened. Now, what is the French Revolution? The monarchy was overthrown. In this year's film, I don't want to give you any spoilers related to the film here. But while analyzing the film, for example, I really liked its opening. The first 5 minutes, but we laughed a lot at one part. When the film started, it said rated 6. Baybars was also going to come to the movie. Then my child, we said this film is a war movie. It's rated 18. All right, then I won't come, he said. He stayed. We went to the cinema with my wife. We saw that at the beginning of the film, it says rated 6. It says suitable for ages 6 and up. If you know who assigns those ratings like 6, 15, 18, please send them my regards. They are truly doing their job very well. In the first 5 minutes of the film, there was a scene of Marie Antoinette's beheading. Yeah, the woman was quite something. In Paris, she was taken to the guillotine amidst thousands of people being booed, spat on, and having all sorts of filth and garbage thrown at her. Her head was neatly cut off with the guillotine. It was held by the hair and shown to everyone. They rated this film as suitable for ages 6 and up. Shame on them, really. Whoever is responsible for this, the Minister of Culture and Tourism, should reconsider the people they have entrusted with this task. It's disgraceful, really. If people took their children to see it. The film is already a bloodbath. In the film, a quarter of the film takes place during a war. Bodies are flying through the air. Well, I really like the war scenes. They were very realistic. But now I'm 47 years old. For those over 6 years old, this is absolutely not appropriate. That's why I think they should label it as 18 and over, 18 and under. For this film, I think they shouldn't have come. Marie Antoinette was dethroned. Look, the Europeans were terrified when the French Revolution happened. Why? Because for the first time in European history, a people rose up and dethroned the monarchy. Until that time, until 1789, the people in Europe worshipped the monarchy. Look, even today, the monarchy is still very important in Europe. England never calls itself England. It says United Kingdom. It says United Kingdom. In the Netherlands, Switzerland, Belgium, and all those places, the monarchy continues. Even if it's symbolic, go to the House of Lords in England and see. When you go to the House of Lords, right in the middle, exactly in the middle of where those lords sit, the throne of the Queen, well, now the King, since she passed away, is there. All decisions, even if symbolic, are approved by the King of England. What do you say? And they were terrified. For the first time, the people revolted, overthrew the monarchy, and even went as far as to behead them. And in fact, the reaction of the English, Russians, Austrians, and Russia against Napoleon Bonaparte was due to their own fear of losing power. It wasn't because of anything else. This is a very important issue. Yes. What happened next? When the French Revolution occurred, thousands of officers who sided with the monarchy were deposed and killed. For example, there is such a scene in the movie. Napoleon Bonaparte is going to meet his wife. There is a child, a very sweet child, to facilitate their meeting. The son of Napoleon's beloved wife, whom he is going to marry, Guienne, from her first husband. The child approaches Napoleon. He says, "My father was killed. They confiscated his sword, and I want his sword back," he says. Napoleon then brings that father's sword to their home. Meanwhile, he meets the child's mother, the widow, and falls in love with her, never leaving her for the rest of his life. In appearance, he might leave her, but in reality, he never will. We will discuss that shortly. Let's say coming up as a classic phrase. Now, when the French Revolution occurred, England, Austria, Prussia, this revolution, to prevent the situation from spreading to us, you know how during the Arab Spring in Arab countries, one after another, dictators were overthrown. It started in Tunisia first, then spread to Egypt. Saudi Arabia and Bahrain did everything to avoid being overthrown. They declared war on France, fearing the same situation might happen to us. And in response to their attack, almost the entire leadership of the French army was dismissed from their duties. A significant portion of them were also killed. Who did they turn to? They turned to Napoleon Bonaparte. Yes, exactly. In those days, the English besieged the port of Toulon because the French, loyal to the monarchy in Toulon, revolted. They called the English for help. Let's see where the port of Toulon is. Let's take a look. Hop, let's bring up our world map again. Our world map has appeared. We gave it a spin like this. Hop, France is here. We zoomed in like this. I went to Marseille, but I couldn't go to Toulon. I would have loved to see Toulon. I went to Marseille. Today we will also talk about Marseille with you. Marseille is the place where Napoleon landed after Elba. In that respect, it is very important. We will talk about that too in a moment with you. But first, I would really like to visit Toulon for another reason. Our Beybaz Hayrettin Pasha also landed in Toulon. He landed in Toulon and also in Marseille. In the port of Toulon, there is even a plaque stating that Barbarossa set foot here. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to see it with my own eyes because I haven't visited Toulon. Now, this is an important port in Toulon, a very important port located in the south of France. Reiterating to the English, they are asking for help from the English. The French, loyal to the king here, are uprising. The English see this as an opportunity for spoils. They come immediately with their fleet. They fill up the Toulon harbor. To this place you see here. And, of course, they capture it. They stay here for a long time. The Jacobins, who carried out the French Revolution, say that we need to capture these places. How will we capture them? The person leading their armies is the painter of the previous French army. In between painting, he is managing the army. He doesn't know strategy, doesn't know warfare, doesn't know weapons, doesn't know artillery. In other words, he can't manage. Napoleon Bonaparte comes to their mind. They say to Napoleon, "Would you manage our Toulon defense?" He would Napoleon comes, looks around and says, oh, the cannons are outdated. For example, this part is shown very well in the film. Napoleon comes, takes a look. The cannons, are unusable. The equipment is in terrible condition. He immediately melts down those cannons. He has new cannons cast. After all, he is an artilleryman himself. He is looking... Now, the English have entered here. Now, the Toulon fortress is a very strong fortress. It's very difficult to capture this place. What should I do? What should I do? The fortress has one tower, a very remote tower. Let me show you that from what I prepared in my presentation. After that, look, we see Toulon here. The tower I mentioned to you. He says, if I capture this tower, from here, he says the English fleet comes within my range with cannons. He says, I will destroy them here. Indeed, with a night operation, he attacks here and captures this tower. Of course, with the capture of the tower here, the English fleet enters his cannon range. The English flee like mad. When their fleet flees, the royalist supporters in Toulon are left alone. He quickly rescues Toulon. That's Napoleon Bonaparte's first major success. This is capturing Toulon in 1793. This was indeed an extremely important and great success for him. In fact, while capturing Toulon, a cannonball hits his horse. For example, that scene in the movie was very beautiful. The cannonball comes like this. Like this. He rears his horse. It hits the horse right in the chest. The cannonball. In fact, these are real events that actually happened in history. Of course, the horse dies instantly, poor thing. He wins the battle. After winning, he goes to his brother. Beside him, he puts his hand into the hole in the horse's chest like this. He takes out the cannonball. He throws it at his brother. To his brother, he says, send this to my mother. He says, I'm continuing exactly as he instructed. So, we have such a Napoleon in front of us, a strategy expert, a Napoleon. Yes. Yes. Sir, you traveled and saw. How did you find the living conditions, geography, and the most pleasing behaviors and attitudes of foreign states? Honestly, Mr. Hawke, the answer to your question, it goes far beyond this conference. Let me tell you that it definitely goes way beyond. Yes. Today, Europe's discipline. Today, Europe has promised. They have sworn never to give power to one man. Napoleon has taught them this lesson. Secondly, Hitler has taught them this lesson. They have suffered great defeats because they gave all the power, all the authority to Napoleon and Hitler. Look, if tomorrow or the day after someone were to say to me, Talha Urlu, we've given you all the power, you're the only man, God forbid. I would also explode, I would also be ruined. Because I am human. When a human being sees 2 rounds of applause, they get spoiled. Some get spoiled after seeing 3 rounds of applause, some after 5. But if a person who sees 10 rounds of applause is not a saint, they will definitely get spoiled. Am I making myself clear? They get spoiled. If they are not a prophet, they will fall. That's why all power, strength should never be given to a single person. Humans age, humans wither. Humans become forgetful. And when this happens, the ancient enemies of humans become their ancient friends. That's why Europe, having learned its lesson from Hitler and Napoleon, has sworn. Today, if you go to the most prominent bureaucrats in Europe, they will tell you this sentence. Even if Jesus descends from the sky, look, we say Prophet Jesus. They say it like that. Even if Jesus descends from the sky and says, I am Jesus, they would say, we would not give the administration solely to him. This is the situation of European bureaucracy today. Is it true? It is absolutely true. People age, grow old, wear out, lose their excitement. Then you change them. For example, during my tours, in the events I participate in the training programs I give, I always look at the younger ones. I am very happy when I see those younger than me who are interested in history. I say, for example, sometimes children come with their parents. Like a child who is 10 years old, they become very dear to me during the tour. Teacher, there are such history enthusiasts like that. Young people. Parents say, oh, if only they could be like you. No, please don't misunderstand. I also say that no, they have to be better than us. May God make them much better than us. If they are not better than us, we cannot evolve, we cannot progress. If they are the same as us, we will remain stagnant. If they are worse than us, then we will regress. Therefore, every academic in Turkey today should look at the young people they work with and say, they should be better than me. Wait a minute, this assistant is getting too ambitious. They might sit in my chair tomorrow. They shouldn't be stopped by saying, ha, you understand what I'm saying, right? Unfortunately, I'm not generalizing, but in our country today, let me say NGO. You'll understand better. NGOs. You can put community, sect, political party, association, institution under this NGO heading, whatever you want. If people in Turkey can't become successful within NGOs, it's because the people at the top cut off the paths of the rising cadres to prevent them from shining. However, if those at the top, the heads of institutions, were to recognize the talents of the young people coming up and pave the way for them, Turkey would progress rapidly. Napoleon Bonaparte's path was opened very quickly. Because it was opened so quickly, he was indeed very talented. He propelled France forward. But what was his biggest crime? For this young man whose path was quickly opened, then they went ahead and gave him all the authority. This is in human nature. You like Talha now, don't you? What do you say when you like him? You say, let his children be historians too. No, you are thinking incorrectly. Wanting the child of someone you admire to do the same job as the person you admire is a human weakness. Aslan Menderes's son, may God rest his soul. Mr. Aydin was a very gentlemanly man. He was disabled in a wheelchair. I was a child back then. There was a special effort to bring him to the head of this country. Why? Because we love his father, so let the son take the lead too. But it doesn't work, friends. Everyone has different abilities. Just because I am a historian doesn't mean my children will be historians. We need to change this mindset. We love this leader, so let his son be a leader too. It won't work for the other one either. Everyone has different abilities. Did Napoleon Bonaparte manage to make his son succeed? The child couldn't do it. He lived a life in prison, died, and was gone. Did his brother manage to succeed? He couldn't. It doesn't work. We will find the capable person. We will pave the way for them. But we won't give all the authority to them. Look, I am telling you very valuable things. If these are done, countries will soar. If these are not done, we will roll along like a blind wheel. What am I doing with this broadcast? Is it to tell the life of Napoleon? Is that my concern? No. I want to draw lessons from Napoleon's life. History is not for consolation. It is not for passing time. History is not a fairy tale. History is a wind to set sail for the future, if we can use it. Where were we? He passed Toulon. He won. And after that, yes, a very ruthless Napoleon emerged. Now, the royalists are not sitting idle. In France, they are planning a very large uprising, and thousands of royalists. In 1795, they fill the streets of Paris and advance towards the Parliament, which is the government palace of the revolutionary administration of that day. And on that day in Paris, there is no proper force to stop these thousands of revolting people. And the coup administration that wants to stop them, who comes to the mind of the French revolutionary administration? Napoleon Bonaparte, who achieved victory in Toulon, comes to mind. They inform Napoleon. They say that the royalty has revolted like this. They will march on us. You must protect us. He agrees. He arranges the artillery units. Look, years ago there was another uprising of the French people like this. Napoleon had seen where they rose up from, and where they were marching to. He lines up artillery units in the streets they will march through. And thousands of people are marching. And in the environment where those thousands of people are marching, Napoleon tells his soldiers to open fire on the people. He says to open fire. Such a ruthless man. Napoleon, just think about it. Either the people or these marching individuals. Is it right to open fire on these marching individuals? He orders it. And of course, they tear them apart. On that day, exactly 1,400 people died from the cannon fire. Do you know 1,400 bomb people? For example, during Eid al-Adha, I actively run around and work. Since my father is a village teacher, he can handle all kinds of work. I help him Seeing blood doesn't bother me, but this. I'm talking about animal blood. If I see human blood, I can't bear it. For example, if I see a human funeral, I get very disturbed, especially causing discomfort to a person, taking a person's life. God forbid, what kind of thing is this? May God protect us. That's my biggest fear when driving. God protect me. Could I accidentally, with a car, touch or hit someone? I am terrified. I mean, knock it off. I always say, let me die, but let no harm come to anyone else. The man kills 400 people. The people are coming walking like this. The royalists, he says, fire. Of course, in the Damadash film, this scene is portrayed magnificently. It would make your blood run cold. In fact, it would be fitting to rate that scene as 20 plus. I mean, those under 20 shouldn't watch it. It's like this: heads, arms, legs. When you see that bombing, you remember those lines from Ahmet Akif's poem, the Sanakale poem. Heads, arms, legs, raining down on the hills and ridges like a torrential downpour. I mean, you see that. Those people, it's a pity those women, men devastated. So what happens? The uprising is suppressed within seconds. Snap, it's over. Of course, Napoleon stands out. When he stands out, his enemies increase. That's how it is. Humankind always, when a person shines, when they gain fame, and when they find money, and when they show this to the public like that, their enemies increase. They have as many enemies as friends. So what happens then? They say about Napoleon, his time is running out. Napoleon is aware of this too. He says, what should I do? What should I do? In those days, there was a vast Ottoman Empire, a very large state. Yes, its teeth and claws have been removed. A lion, but ultimately still a lion. He says he hears about this Ottoman. A new sultan has come to the head of the Ottoman Empire. Sultan III, Selim, young, talented, progressive, open to innovations. Third, he is trying to continue some of the reforms from the period of Mustafa III. He is trying to revive the Imperial School of Engineering. And from France, new, he wants to bring in artillerymen to strengthen that corps. Look, I brought you a photo from the Imperial School of Engineering. Do you see it? Third, of course, this is a photo from a later period. A black and white frame. The Imperial School of Engineering was opened in 1795. When did he suppress the uprising? Napoleon. He killed the king. Bombarded. 1795. At the end of the same year, he learns that the Ottomans want artillery from France. He says, okay, I'll go to the Ottoman Empire. And he applies. And the Ottomans accept. The Ottomans say, come to Napoleon. Napoleon is just about to go. They say, we will send you to Italy. Go to Italy. In other words, they are afraid he will go to the Ottoman Empire, get polished there, and come back. They say, let's send him to a war. Let him be defeated in this war. Let his nose be rubbed in it. Let his wings and arms be broken. Thus, they say, he won't be able to stand out more. They send him, but there are some men who come back even greater from wars. Caesar, for example, went to war to the Gallic campaign. He came back from there even greater and directly took the consul in Rome into his hand. Just like that, Napoleon will be sent to Italy. So he is not coming to the Ottoman country. He could have come. There were those who came to the Ottoman country, for example, a Mevlevi who later became a Muslim, and a Mevlevi. Napoleon was indeed coming to Istanbul and converting to Islam. Well, you know Baron de Toth, the artillery Baron de Toth. He is also French. He comes, for example, during the reign of the Third. He comes during the reign of Ahmed, but during the Tulip era. After that, initially, he was a very troublesome commander in the French army. He can't get along with anyone. When he can't get along in France, this French commander moves to Austria. He manages the artillery units of the Austrian army. He can't get along with them either. Then he says, let me become a Muslim. Our people are quite patient with him and take an interest in him. He is immediately very impressed by us when he gets along well with us. He becomes a Muslim, Baron de Toth. He becomes Humbarachi Ahmed Pasha. Then he joins a Sufi order. He becomes a Mevlevi. Where is his grave today? He is buried in the Hamushan inside the Galata Mevlevi Lodge, Humbaraji Ahmed Pasha. In other words, Napoleon Bonaparte narrowly escapes. Fateh. In those days, he meets Josephine. Actually, desire. In English, desire. In French, desire. He's going to marry Desire, the daughter of a merchant. But he gets engaged to her. But then he meets Josephine. When he meets Josephine, of course, everything changes. Josephine is a widow. Her husband was killed during the French Revolution. After that, her weapons were confiscated. Josephine has a son and a daughter. She has 2 children. Josephine has a very charming little son. When he comes to Napoleon to ask for his father's sword, for example, in the film, this scene with Napoleon is portrayed very sweetly. Napoleon goes down to the depot, where the swords of the killed French soldiers are stored. There is a depot officer with him. He says on his swords, is the name of the soldier's owners written on it? He says, no, it doesn't. Well, he needs to give the child his father's sword. What will he do? He takes one of the soldiers' swords and leaves. He has learned their home address. He knocks on the door. Of course, the child runs and comes. He gives him the sword. After giving the sword, the mother, of course, comes down. They meet Josephine, and so on. Now, of course, gossip is very popular in films. Gossip is brought to the forefront. There, truly, very soulless, very troubled, even to his own wife. Excuse me. You see a Napoleon Bonaparte who behaves like an animal. So, was this man really such a person? No, he wasn't. He was a dictator. He was ruthless. But he loved Josephine very much, because Josephine was a smart woman. Look, smart men love smart women. Smart men do not love women who cannot manage themselves. Look, we are not looking at whether they graduated from primary school, middle school, high school, or university. Women who are open to development. There are some women who restrain their husbands. They say, let it be small, but let it be mine. There are some women, they see that their husband has a talent, and they pave the way for him. They say, let him expand. Well, there are some women like this. They are barren, ignorant. They come and say, look, your man is expanding too much. Look, he is becoming very famous. He is recognized. They will snatch him away. Who knows what might happen, brother? Ignorant women get scared in such situations, and they block their husband's path. In such situations, the marriage usually ends in divorce. A smart woman paves the way for her husband, so that he might progress. Josephine was such a woman. If Napoleon had married anyone else instead of Josephine, he would have divorced. Let me tell you, he wouldn't have gotten along, because Napoleon was a crazy man. I mean, he lived for 52 years. For a comfortable 35 years of those 52, he never got off his horse. You can't rein in a man like that. You have to pave the way for such a man, but you must change the course of the flowing water without blocking it. You can't block the flow of the stream. You should look to benefit from it. You will open a channel towards yourself, and so on and so forth. These are very important. Look, at 47 years old, marriage, laws and rules. Okay, those of you who are single and listening to me, if you want to get married and be happy in the future, whether you're a woman or a man, this is very important. If you support each other, you will succeed. If you trip each other up, drive stakes, and pin each other down, you will destroy each other. Pay attention to this. Napoleon Bonaparte. If Napoleon became Bonaparte, this woman has contributed a lot. He marries Josephine. 2 days later, let's see. This is a scene from the movie. Where to? To the Italian campaign. 2 days. Ladies who are listening to me right now. The man you married goes to war 2 days later and doesn't return for a year. How many of us would say yes? How many of us? I feel like I can hear your words with my ears right now. He will marry me, leave for war 2 days later, and won't come back for a year. No way, no matter who he marries. I feel like I can hear the sentences saying, let him stay there. He won't come to us. But still, get married and leave 2 days later. I'm behind you. There is a woman who says, I will write to you every week and continue to be with you through letters. This is very important. I mean, the film has portrayed this passionate love with Josephine. It has really portrayed it. But still, the film couldn't quite capture Josephine's strong character. It fell short. Josephine seems to appear more subdued. She seems to be in Napoleon's shadow. At some point, they make Napoleon say certain lines, but the woman was a much more special woman. The script fell short in this regard. What does a strong woman mean? What does a woman who controls Napoleon mean? Frankly, we can't clearly see that in this film. Now, the French Revolution happened. The royal families were caught off guard. Uh-huh. Of course, they form a coalition. Against whom? Against France. They say, let's form a force against France. Let's defeat the coup plotters, the revolutionary groups. Let's revive the monarchy in France. They say. So Austria gets involved in this. And England, well, there's England. That England has no place to hide. England, which does all the dirty work, sets up the whole environment, gathers them all. But the gentlemen never get into the fire. These are island states. They are like a beautiful bull in the herd with their navy. They roam around the edges like this. To Prussia, to Austria, Sardinia, to Piedmont, in other words, to those Italian city-states, they say, go ahead, we're on the sidelines. They kill the nation's children. They did the same thing in the Battle of Gallipoli. In the Battle of Gallipoli, they went there too. They deceived and brought poor people from Australia and New Zealand to have them killed in our country. The British, you know, they know these things, these situations so well. Oh. Yes. 2 days after the wedding. Yes. Josephine and Napoleon's pocket watches stopped at the same time. This influenced his decision to marry people. Yes. There are such nice comments coming in. I apologize for not being able to read them one by one. It's a very long life story. Look, we started at 10 p.m. It's 10:50 p.m. So without taking too much of your time, about half an hour, I need to finish within 40 minutes. But there are some amazing scenes coming up, especially now. Scenes related to the Ottoman Empire will be shown. Get ready. He is fighting against the First Coalition forces. He defeats them all decisively. He defeats them all. It is said that in the First Coalition wars in that region, he defeated 16 different armies in 16 different places. This is truly an amazing thing, because he is a genius in strategy. At the end of 1 year, he brings Austria, Prussia, Sardinia, and Piedmont into line. Even England retreats and a peace agreement is signed. He returns stronger. He returns much stronger. Of course, after he returns, a coup takes place. Elections are held during those days. In France, didn't the royalists get more votes in the election? What did I tell you? What did Jacobinism mean? It meant for the people despite the people. Look, the royalty wins the election. So the people are saying, I want a king, my friend, go away. Because there is still chaos around. In other words, the revolutionaries couldn't end the chaos. The people are uneasy. The people are saying, I was better off when there was a king, my friend. I was comfortable when there was a king, they say. I was receiving my salary regularly, they say. Yes, I was getting less, but I was getting it regularly, they say. Now you came and said you would give more salary. But now the people are saying we are hungry. We are in trouble, they say. The people are uprising. And in the play, the royalty wins. When they win, these revolutionaries with weapons, the coup plotters, stage another coup. This is the famous coup of September 4, 1797. And of course, while carrying out this coup, Napoleon Bonaparte, at that time in Italy, sends part of the army from Italy. He assists in the coup, and a triple directorate is established. A triple directorate. Who is one of the teams of this triple directorate? Napoleon himself. They are supporters of Napoleon. They say to Napoleon, we are giving you an order. He has returned from Italy. Finish off the English. They are causing us a lot of trouble. Deal with it. Napoleon looks. Now France's north is England. There is a strait in between. But England has a huge fleet. He cannot get past that fleet. Look, he says, we cannot cross over to England. Island. From here, he says. So what are we going to do? Let's deplete England's sources of income, he says. And how are we going to deplete England's sources of income? By attacking the Ottoman country, that is Egypt. The Suez Canal in Egypt hasn't been opened yet, but ultimately England uses the Red Sea passage there. So, let's see. Napoleon sets out from France with his fleet, and he heads straight to Alexandria. Because what power do the English have? They have the Indian sea routes. They bring all their revenues from India through the Red Sea with ships like this. At that time, there was no Suez Canal. But even without the Suez Canal, they add to their wealth by using a small land route here and then ships from the Mediterranean. they increased their wealth even more. He says, let me seize Egypt. He says, if I take control of this region, I will stop all the resources of the British. Napoleon, those with him agree. They board the ships. In fact, they also want to distance Napoleon a bit from France. Those who are envious of his rise, he leaves France very quietly, without giving any ultimatum to the Ottomans or anything, without the knowledge of the Ottoman palace in Istanbul. Suddenly, he first attacks Alexandria. He captures Alexandria. After Alexandria, from there, he comes to Cairo. He captures Cairo as well. Of course, it's a long story. This is an event we could talk about for hours. His arrival in Egypt. When he arrives in Egypt, it's shown very briefly in the film. His arrival in Egypt, there is the Battle of the Pyramids. The Battle of the Pyramids. That battle is described very briefly. The Battle of the Pyramids. So they talk a little about it. How this battle was won at the Giza Pyramids. Look, let me show you like this. The Giza region, here it is. The area where the Giza Pyramids are located. Look over there, it already says Giza. You can see it. Then, because it was made here, the war. In the Ottoman period, they weren't called pyramids. They were called Arams. This is called the Battle of the Arams. Napoleon, of course, has artillery units. At that time, there were two Mamluk rulers here. Mamluk, on behalf of the Ottoman Empire. There are two here. Administrators, Pasha governing. They have cavalry units. Their cannons are fixed cannons. Look, now come and speak here. When Yavuz Sultan Selim won the Battle of Ridaniye in 1517, defeated the Mamluk state and entered Cairo. He had cannons that could rotate 360 degrees. He defeated Toman Bey's fixed cannons with his mobile cannons. In 1517, Yavuz Sultan Selim had mobile cannons. In the 1800s, then towards the end of the 1700s, the Ottomans had fixed cannons here. Did you see that? This is how regression happens. Regression? Yavuz Sultan Selim was ahead of his time. The Ottoman units in Egypt at that time were behind their era. So, why aren't there mobile cannons here? Why are we weak in this regard? Why aren't we at the forefront? What happened? Significant income was also being obtained from Egypt. We see the Ottomans' negligence here. We see how they lay down and slept. We see how they stopped competing with the world powers. We see how far behind they fell in technology. The man is capturing everything effortlessly. He defeats our units here so easily. The film also made a mockery. The Ottoman troops were mocked. Napoleon fires a cannon. The Mamluk Pashas, they fall off their horses. They fall off their horses, you know. We were so embarrassed while watching it in the cinema. But, of course, Napoleon stays here. For a while, there are even false rumors spreading that he sympathizes with Islam and secretly converted to Islam. To win the sympathy of the people, he establishes a serious system. He eases the people's burdens. He sets up interesting systems, management, approaches, education systems. He has schools built. He quite wins the love of the people. Very interesting. He says, if I can make these people love me, I can hold on here. But then there was Trafalgar Square. In London, the famous British admiral comes here. He burns the French fleet here. When the French fleet is burned, Napoleon is trapped here. His troops have a limit. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Upon this, he says, if I wait here like this, I will be exhausted without stopping. Because the Ottomans start sending small amounts of aid. The Ottoman fleet and such. So, this won't work. He says, wait, let me do something else. He says, let me leave here and invade Syria with my army. He comes to Palestine, up to Acre. From here, he says, let me move to Iran. From Iran, let me move to India. In India, let me destroy all the supply forces the British have. And he says, let me end the power of the British. Where is it? The idea of not dealing with mosquitoes but draining the swamp, he says, let me do that. So he sets out from here to do this. He comes to the outskirts of Acre and Acre city, actually first Jaffa. He arrives, Jaffa, in the Jaffa, coming to him, I say to you, let me show you this. Yes. Oh, Jaffa, he massacres 10,000 people, including women and children, without discrimination. Heads are rolling. He says, I need to take this place. Look, they've written Tel Aviv. When we look on Google Earth, we see it as Tel Aviv. The name of this city is not Tel Aviv. Jaffa, our historic city of Jaffa, they turned it into Tel Aviv. Israel made it the capital for years. After that, 10,000 people were killed here. Today you go to Jaffa. I often go with groups. When you look here, the airport is here. Our plane lands here. Historic Jaffa, while walking around, you see statues of Napoleon Bonaparte and such. Jaffa, do you know of Napoleon? Do Jews like Napoleon? They do. Why do they like him? Well, Jaffa, he killed 10,000 Muslims, regardless of women and children. This is something Jews would like. Also, when he gained power in France, he liberated the Jews there from oppression. He opened up opportunities for them. He sees them merchant-minded. He says they could be beneficial to us. He eases their situation. Napoleon, so he has this aspect as well. Very interesting. Napoleon from here. He goes to Acre, and Acre is a port city. As you can see, well, one day I haven't started my Jerusalem tours yet. When I start, shall we go to Acre? Sometimes, like the classic groups in Turkey, a 3-day Jerusalem tour. Sometimes it's a 4-day tour. I have also done many tours that include Acre and Haifa. Let's go to Acre for a day, and I'll show you around Acre. Look, here it is. Did you see? What a magnificent city. You can see the secrets, right? Everyone to the historical walls of the city of Acre. Look at these. The moats in between are incredible. Where do you place this? Napoleon Bonaparte besieges this place. This is exactly the place he besieged. He besieges this place. He struggles with his armies for months. At one point, he almost captures it. Our third, Selim, sends a regular army of 3,000 soldiers, 3,000 people. The regular Seled army docks the ship. When our 3,000 people arrive, Algerian Ahmed Pasha, then over 90 years old, finds great strength. And our people give Napoleon the first defeat of his life here. And in this siege, Napoleon is also within the army. It's shown in the film, but of course it's not really shown. Would they ever show it? To the benefit of Muslims, it will polish the Muslims. Not the slightest thing is shown. Ahmed Pasha of Algeria is actually the ruler of this region. In fact, Ahmed Pasha of Algeria had a large complex built here. Look, let me show you up close. The place you see with the green dome, it is a very beautiful mosque. The surrounding area is the madrasa. Look, do you see those small domes? These are the madrasa rooms, rooms where students stay as boarders. Right over there is a tomb. Ahmed Pasha of Algeria is buried here. He had a large madrasa built. The main classroom building is the mosque itself. It is a very elegant mosque. And Ahmed Pasha of Algeria is buried here. The great one who defeated Napoleon Bonaparte. A statesman, a great commander? Yes, Napoleon's arrival in Egypt at one point led to the emergence of ancient Egyptian culture. Napoleon brought along a significant number of scientists. For example, one of the scientists within the French army was the famous philologist Champollion. Champollion was the first person in history to read hieroglyphs. There is also an English philologist. He also worked hard, but it was Champollion who deciphered it first. That was the Rosetta Stone. He solved it with the key. Napoleon, during the era of the ancient pharaohs, he seriously researched Egypt, this and that. He tried to understand the pyramids. Yes, he also plundered those places. He looted. He took some of the mummies to Istanbul, to France even today. At the Louvre Museum in Paris, smuggled from France, smuggled from Egypt. There are so many things. As you can see, this is an image from Napoleon's Egyptian campaign. This is also a very beautiful aerial view, a photo of the city of Acre, the complex of Chesder Ahmed Pasha. Look, it looks much clearer and more beautiful from here. You can see the waters. Napoleon cannot capture Acre. He sees that his army is continuously shrinking. He returns to Cairo. He leaves his army there. He escapes to France with 2 small ships at midnight. For a few more years, his poor, destitute army continues to remain there. If one day you go to Acre, with or without me, take a look. Right behind the mosque of Cezayir Ahmed Pasha, there is a large Ottoman complex here. In the square behind this complex, there is the clock tower of Sultan Abdulhamid Seku. Abdulhamid Khan's clock tower is also there. The Acre Clock Tower. It still stands strong and is very beautiful. Be sure to see it as well. On the body of the clock tower, there is a giant Ottoman coat of arms. It was placed during the reign of Abdulhamid Khan. You must definitely see that too. Napoleon returns. Upon his return, there is a new coup. A triumvirate is established. They also include Napoleon Bonaparte in the triumvirate. In fact, they say you are the number one of this triumvirate. Why do they say this? Those around him, to use his military power and ambition, they say you are our leader, our commander. They make him the first consul. If you give all the authority to such an ambitious and capable man, what will he do tomorrow? With power intoxication, he will overthrow everyone and declare his dictatorship. He hasn't declared it yet. He is the number one of the triumvirate. Look, it says premier consul. So who was the premier of the consul? Bonaparte. Yes, Napoleon Bonaparte. Meanwhile, the royal world, the European royal powers, yes, they come together. They attack again. For the second time, he defeats the second coalition attack again. Look, I'm not going into these details to avoid boring you. He defeats them repeatedly. Repeatedly, this will be the third coalition, fourth, fifth, sixth, until finally they will defeat Napoleon once and for all. But Napoleon will win against all of them. 5, 6, 7, 8 states unite. The man defeats them on his own. Yes, he wins, but yes, in every battle, among his soldiers, he eats what the soldiers eat. He dresses how the soldiers dress. Such is the man. These are the secrets of success. It's a famous saying of Napoleon. He says an army marches on its stomach. He says it marches on its stomach. He has a famous saying, money, money, money. Did he say it? He really did say it. But this money, he mentions money reason. He says, power is in money. If you have money, you are powerful, he says. That's true, but think about today. Our country, Turkey, if it were a country that doesn't succumb to inflation, if our money was strong, the value of our money is 1/30th of other countries' currencies. Not 1/30th. Even when the Ottoman Mevlevi collapsed, one Ottoman lira was $3. $3. Our currency was exactly 3 times the American currency. Even as the Ottoman Empire was collapsing, today, our money is worth 1/30th of theirs. I say this with regret. If your money is worthless, you become weaker, less powerful. They bomb Gaza and you just watch. So, that's the situation, sorry. There's nothing to say. I would really like that. When I put 1 TL in my pocket and go to America or Europe, when I exchange it, my 1 TL should be worth the foreigners. 30 TL. 30 euro. Wouldn't I want that? Of course, I would. The other day, I saw something amazing in this. I saw something amazing in artificial intelligence. I thought I'd use it on my social media. For European money, it's cheap as euro. But for my money, it's very valuable. I didn't have enough power. I couldn't do it. I was going to make a much higher quality system for you. I couldn't do it. It didn't happen. And Napoleon Bonaparte too? What does he do when he defeats the coalition forces? He has himself declared emperor. The year is 1800. It's for emperor. Napoleon's self-declaration as emperor is a very interesting painting. He personally had this painting prepared while his wife Josephine is placing the crown. In fact, the crown is also shown in the film. The same scene? They did this scene very well in the film too. Did you see the scene in the painting? You see it there? What was Napoleon supposed to do in Italy? He needed to go to Italy. He was going to go to Italy. In front of the Pope in Rome, the 7th, he was going to bow before Pius. The Pasha was going to crown him. But Napoleon is such a monument of pride and arrogance. He says no. He says no. He says that I do not take my power from the Pasha. He says, I take my power directly from God. He says, the Pasha cannot place a crown on my head. The Pasha brings the crown like this. Napoleon takes the crown from the Pasha's hand. He takes it. He places it on his own head. In the movie, for example, they made this scene very beautifully. He puts it on himself. Then he takes it off. He gestures while his wife bows in front of him to his wife. His wife also puts it on. So that night, he declares himself emperor. and his wife, Empress Napoleon Bonaparte. This is also a scene from the movie exactly like this. This painting is a very interesting one. Look, in this painting, there is a man in the background watching Napoleon's coronation ceremony. Let's see a close-up of this man. With you, this man is Halet Effendi. 2. He is the Ottoman ambassador sent to France by Mahmud II. He is a very interesting man. One day I will make a video about this Halet Effendi as I understand him. Either when I go to Konya, I will do it at the grave of his body in Konya. You know, I love talking about the deceased. It would be very nice. He can sit like this at his grave. You speak sweetly. Sweetly? It would be very enjoyable. If you talk about the deceased, it becomes gossip. If I talk, it becomes knowledge. That's why I have a special card, you know. It says on it, can talk about the deceased. In the garden of the Mevlana Lodge in Konya, in this Mevlevi tomb with a sikke, there is no head under this grave. Only the body is there. I will tell you about it here. Halet Effendi, or during a Taksim Beyoğlu tour, as we walk from the Galata Tower where our tour starts to Istiklal Avenue, the entrance gate of the Galata Mevlevi Lodge, look, this is it. We are currently inside the Mevlevi Lodge, the street passing in front of it. We have entered inside the Mevlevi Lodge. He had a tomb built at the entrance of the Mevlevi Lodge. What a shame. Inside, that Ottoman gentleman is inside. There are the tombs of the Sheikh Galips, small, modest. This man is their disciple. A disciple, yet he had a huge mausoleum built for himself. Well, that's what power intoxication does to a person. This is actually a strange, simple scribe. He is proficient in foreign languages. While working as a scribe, they make him a translator. He becomes a Mevlevi while sitting at the feet of Sheikh Galip in Mevlevi order. He sneaks in and rises to the top. In other words, he gains strength, rises, and shines within the structure of a sect. However, I apologize greatly. It might sound inappropriate, but those who go ahead of the sycophants, that's why I hate those who infiltrate these NGOs, appear as the brightest among them, and rise to the top. Those with malicious intent, they infiltrate, seize power, and then ruin those environments. They ruin them. Of course, there are many such communities. They start off very innocently. They say, I will educate people. I will explain Islam. They say, I will promote good and prevent evil. They truly start off very properly, then flatterers infiltrate them. They rise quickly because they are very good at this. They praise those around them to others. They polish them up. Then all authority is given to them. They take over. Those innocent NGOs, suddenly, they transform into a very ugly, very powerful, very ruthless organization. I don't know if I'm able to convey what I mean. Yes, that's why some NGO members need to be very careful. They should pave the way for capable people, not for ambitious people, not for selfish people. Once they obtain power, they turn it around. Halit Effendi was such a man. Halit, he used Mevlevi order. He used the Mevlevis. Ambition also rose. Look, you may not believe me. The situation is clear. Being a student of Sheikh Galip, and yet at the entrance of Sheikh Galip's tiny hut-like tomb, at the entrance of the door, a person, would he have such a tomb built for himself while he was alive? Weren't you ashamed at all? Didn't the sheikhs of the Mevlevi Lodge, who saw his ambition, put a stop to him? Didn't the Sultan and the rulers of that day say stop? They didn't. What happened? He experienced a power surge. He took it in his palm. After a while, he even started to manipulate Mahmud II, even Mahmud II. Mahmud II realized, oh no, what have we done? He said to this man. Everyone was fed up with him, but everyone was terrified. Everyone was kissing his hand and him. There was a sheikh. He said some of his actions were bad or something. The sheikh, the man continued, you know, to Bursa, from there to Afyon, the sheikh had his wife killed because she spoke against his own wife. He had the woman he killed stripped completely naked. He had the woman's naked corpse thrown on the roads from Afyon to Istanbul. Halit Effendi was such a vile man, you see? Yeah. Am I making myself clear? Let this be a lesson for all of us. No matter what environment you are in, for example, in a political party, a sect, a community, an association, an institution, there are types who slyly rise from the bottom to the top. Their only goal is their own interests and positions. We must not give them power. Absolutely not. Royalty. Those whose work and focus are society and humanity. Those who elevate societies. Oh. And Napoleon Bonaparte. Mr. Khalid, speaking of Mr. Khalid here, he returns to Istanbul. So they say, France grew, became stronger, became number one. How do we become like that? A nonsensical report is presented by the Pope. I won't go into it now to not take up your time. I'll explain it in the video where I talk about Mr. Khalid. Just a bunch of nonsense. That's it. He mentions 3 to 4 things. He says if we do these, in 5 years, we will become a superpower. In 5 years. Such a shallow, low-quality guy. Yes, this time they come together again. Again. This time England is leading the event again. There is Sweden, Naples, and Austria. This time another power joins. Russia also joins. To defeat Napoleon, these allied forces come together once more. And this is called the War of the Third Coalition. It takes place in 1807. Here, England defeats the French fleet at Trafalgar. Defeats them. But, apart from that, Napoleon Bonaparte wins all the land battles again. What a man. I mean, he defeats Napoleon, defeats Austria, defeats Sweden, and defeats Russia. And he defeats Russia so thoroughly that he flattens it. A treaty is signed with the Russian Tsar. After this, they say we will act together against England. There's only one problem. The problem is this. Our Napoleon Bonaparte is unable to have a child with his wife. So what does he do when he can't have a child? He divorces his wife by mutual agreement. He says, look, I urgently need to leave an heir, and you can't have a child. For that reason, we will have a child. In fact, his mother even sets him up with a young girl at one point. He gets together with her. Indeed, when it turns out that the girl is pregnant after a month, it becomes clear that the reason for not having a child is not him. It is confirmed that it was his wife, and he marries the daughter of the then King of Austria. He marries Maria Louise. But he never loves Maria Louise, because when they got married, she was just a child. Maria Louise. That is, at a child's age. In other words, timid, quiet, accepts whatever is said, listens to whatever is said. So she has nothing to contribute to Napoleon. For that reason, he never truly separated from his original wife. In other words, he never let go of his love for her. He never abandoned her. This is very important. He always arranged a mansion for her nearby. He frequently went to see her. Yes. From this marriage, the marriage with Maria Louise, a child is born in the same year. This is Francois Joseph Charles Bonaparte. Poor thing, he is unfortunate too. This child is born in the year 1811, 10 years after he was born. In 1820, Bonaparte is deposed. Bonaparte is completely exiled, never to return again. He dies anyway. He dies on the island of St. Helena in 1821. This child is declared a ruler for about a week or 10 days. In France, as Napoleon said, then he is deposed because England does not want it. They say, we do not want to see anyone from Napoleon's lineage in France. Since we deposed him, the power is with us, the right to speak is with us. Choose another king for yourselves. Select a ruler, they say. They do not accept Napoleon's son. Actually, the people of France want him, his son, but the powers, the allied forces, reject him. When rejected, this young boy is sent to his uncles. Where was his mother from? His mother was from Austria, the Archduke's Holy Roman Empire right then. Austria, his mother was the youngest daughter of its king. His mother has brothers, uncles. The uncles take him, and there is the Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna. Whenever I do an Italy tour, I definitely take the groups to Schönbrunn Palace. Hopefully I will start overseas tours. We will do a tour of 4 countries, 4 capitals with you. 4 countries, 4 capitals. Which countries are these? From here, from Turkey, we will first fly to Budapest. We will go to Budapest, Hungary. We will tour the Czech Republic. I really love its capital. After that, we will go to Vienna. We will tour Austria, step by step like this. We will visit all of these. Of course, I am currently continuing with tours in Turkey. We will have a Mardin tour at New Year's. At New Year's, for example, tomorrow I have a Fatih Wednesday tour. On Sunday, there is a tour of Istanbul museums on the gezikitap.com website. Go and check it out, gezikitap.com. There, you can see which weekend, for example, next week, there is a tour of Üsküdar and Beylerbey Palace. You should definitely come to that. I highly recommend it. It's a very beautiful tour. Now, when the dates show 1812, France is transforming into an empire like this. Look, it has almost taken control of nearly all of Austria. You can see it. Has taken control of a large part of Poland. It has taken control of Italy, as it is. There is no state in Germany at all. There is Prussia, which it has taken control of. Then the Netherlands, it has taken control of Denmark. It has taken control of Spain. Those red lines are the borders of France at that time. Did you see? It has completely taken over. Of course, it cannot take over England. That's the situation. It appoints its relatives as kings here and there, and so on. It's such a period in question, 1812. But of course, trouble begins. What kind of trouble? He decides to embark on the Moscow campaign. Oh, my friend, why are you going? Are you crazy? Later, Hitler will make the same mistake. Hitler will also make it. Some sources say he set out with 600,000, some say 800,000 soldiers. Look, 800,000 is a terrifying number. Even when we look at Ottoman history, the Ottoman Empire generally set out on campaigns with 100,000, at most 200,000 soldiers. Even with those 100,000 to 200,000, the Ottomans instilled fear in the hearts of Europe, and especially the Safavids, because it's not easy. Armies generally have a strength of 30,000, 50,000, 80,000. They say he went with 800,000. But for example, in the movie, he went with 600,000 people. It says he returned with 40,000 people, 560,000. Imagine what it means to return with 40,000. For God's sake. Yes, he sets out on the Moscow campaign and repeatedly defeats the Russians. And he enters Moscow. He enters. But when he gets to Moscow, he sees that the city has been burned and abandoned by the Russians. Because the Russian Tsar of that day tells the King of Prussia, oh no, he's coming. I am 100 kilometers away from Moscow. 100 kilometers to Moscow. The man is winning the war. He is winning the war. 100 kilometers left. To Moscow, the Russian Tsar says to Prussia, what should I do? He replies, burn Moscow, evacuate the city. You can't do anything else. He says, if he captures the city with its riches, he will settle there, spend the winter, and face no difficulties. He will finish you. Upon this, they burn Moscow and flee. In the film, for example, this scene is depicted very strikingly. He enters Moscow amidst the ruins. In fact, the next day they destroy the city even more. The Russian remnants they left in the city. What can he do? And then winter is coming. When winter comes, they can't stay at all. While returning in those winter conditions, most of the army, look, the lowest figure given is 500,000. Does it make sense to go with 500,000 and return with 40,000? For 60,000 French, soldiers die. In this war, for whom do they die? For an ambitious dictator, for the ambition of a dictator. Yes, you might say, couldn't it have been without war? Napoleon wanted peace very much. Repeatedly, he said to England, to Russia, let's make peace. Let's make peace. But they saw that this man was troublesome. This man is strengthening France a lot. If this man stays on the throne tomorrow, their own kingdoms will be lost. Their own people will rise up and overthrow them. Secondly, France will gain more power because he is a very disciplined man. They said, we won't make an agreement with him. Because they didn't agree, Napoleon undertook these campaigns. So you are aware of this, aren't you? Now, I was going to say, Mr. Talha, it's unclear whether you're criticizing or praising Napoleon. A true historian does it this way. I am not a friend or acquaintance of Napoleon, nor am I his enemy. I am analyzing a man who died many years ago for you. Yes, this man was very talented. He elevated his country onto great heights. He would have taken it even further, but because external powers did not want this, Napoleon was forced to fight them. And he lost his power. When he returned from Moscow, of course, he was significantly weakened. They said, this time we can solve it. We can finish him because he no longer has power. They gathered again. The coalition forces, and at the Battle of Leipzig, Napoleon Bonaparte faced one of the deepest defeats of his life. He had suffered his first defeat at Acre against the Ottomans. He was defeated here as well. When he was defeated, he was desperate. There was only one thing he could do: escape. What happened? They captured him and exiled him to the island of Elba. Where is the island of Elba? Let's take a look at our map right away. In the meantime, we are slowly approaching the end. Let's take another look at our map. Yes. Look, we will fly towards Italy like this. Yes, Elba is visible. Look, Italy, and even the island where Napoleon Bonaparte was born, the island of Corsica. You can see how close the island of Elba is to Corsica. The island of Elba. They imprisoned him here, on Elba. When I was a child, I loved the novel The Count of Monte Cristo. It's a habit of mine to read a book I love. I read it 3-5 times like this. I go back and read it again. I go back and read it again. I really love The Count of Monte Cristo. That's why I've read it multiple times in different translations. Even the last time I read it in English, since I don't know French, I thought, why not? Close to the original. Actually, the original is in French. It's a novel by Alexandre Dumas. For those of you who have read it, the novel The Count of Monte Cristo is normally set in Marseille. Where is our Marseille? Here. I mean, our Marseille, Barbaros took this place. He ruled it for 4 years. That's why this is our Marseille. It's very beautiful, you know? Marseille. I gave a conference once in my life in Marseille. A lot of Turks live there. They invited me to Marseille. I gave a conference and I toured around very nicely. I learned a lot too. It's a very beautiful city, Marseille. Napoleon Bonaparte. He is exiled to Elba. In Alexandre Dumas' The Count of Monte Cristo, there's a boy in Marseille, Edmond Dante, a poor boy who loves a girl named Mercedes. And he has enemies. There's one from Montedougle. Then there was a guy who got him imprisoned to take Mercedes. Wait, what was his name? Fernand. There's Fernand. I'm not reading any of this from anywhere. You know, right? While I'm telling you this, I don't have a paper in front of me. No screen, nothing. I'm looking at the map you see right now, just so you know. After that, I really love it. Fernand, but then how does he get rid of them? Priest Faria. If you ever go to Marseille, or if I take you, let me take you to the Chateau d'If. Let me show you the Chateau d'If in Marseille right away. Where is it? Yes. This is exactly Marseille, you know. Right here, look. Chateau d'If. Here, this tiny island you see. There's a prison here. Yes, look. It says d'If. Did you see? Chateau d'If. Of course, we call it Chateau d'If. The D at the beginning is not pronounced. Chateau d'If. Here are Edmond Dante, who will become the Count of Monte Cristo. He is falsely accused. They imprison him here. For years, the poor boy remains imprisoned here. Then, in the cell next door, read the novel if you haven't. Don't make me explain it here. He meets the priest Faria there. Then, of course, he comes into great wealth. Then he returns to all those who caused him suffering. Sweetly, sweetly. He goes to Paris. From that Montedougle, from Fernandi, so beautifully, Fernand, in Alexandre Dumas' novel, the officer who killed Tepedelenli Ali Pasha, right? Yes. Our Tepedelenli, the governor of Ioannina Ali Pasha, Fernand kills him. Look at Alexandre Dumas. He wrote a novel from that. The Ottoman Empire is mentioned in many parts of the novel. I guess I was interested in history as a child. That Monte Cristo was included. That's why I liked it a lot. It also talks about Napoleon Bonaparte's departure from Marseille. Anyway, where are we? Let's go to Elba Island. Where are we? Elba Island is over there. They exiled him to Elba Island. Napoleon. For exactly 1 year in this room on this island, he lives a life of imprisonment. At the end of the year, look at the ship that comes there. Napoleon's departure from Elba Island. Look, Maha, from here, the fortress on Elba. He leaves and departs from Marseille. The entire people who booed him a year ago. Down with him. He ruined us. He devastated us like this. He finished us like that. Those who booed him for killing hundreds of thousands in Moscow a year later, they cheer, long live, hurrah. You have grown. Look, the king, they are clinging to his leg. French soldiers. In the film, there is a very sweet scene about his return from Elba. Like this. He left Elba with his own troops, a small unit. The king learns that he has left Elba. He sends an army. The army lines up like this in front of him. Then they point their weapons. Bayonet kindnesses. Saying they won't harm him if he returns to Elba. He says, I want to make a speech. As soon as he says he wants to make a speech, the weapons are immediately aimed. They are about to pull the triggers. He gives a speech there. By the way, did I mention that Napoleon Bonaparte was an incredible orator? I mean, he was worn out and exhausted, with soldiers who had come to the point of deserting the war. He would speak within minutes and motivate them for battle like a razor. Did you know? He was an incredible orator. He would give amazing speeches and instantly influence everyone. He gives them a speech. In an instant, within minutes, all the soldiers who had pointed their bayonets at him shout, "Long live our emperor!" Suddenly they fall in line behind him. He marches towards Paris. Did you know? The king brings him down again. It's amazing, really. He brings him down. Very interesting. When I say amazing, the man is a dictator. May God protect us from dictators. I don't like dictators. I don't like one-man regimes. As you know, I made a video on this YouTube channel before. Monarchy or republic? I said, what did I say? Of course, republic. A million times republic. Why would I want a monarchy, dear? Oh my God. What will we do? What if another Selim II comes? What will we do? That's not right. Here, hereditary rule is not correct. From the scholar comes the tyrant. From the tyrant comes the scholar. That's not right. That's why you elect, bring them in. If you don't like them, you remove them. The republic is the best regime. You don't give all the power to one man. And what happened to Napoleon Bonaparte? With power intoxication. The man came to power again, didn't he? How can you not become a Jacobin? The man. He killed his own children. He ended it all for his own ambition. He reduced the population of France to almost a quarter. But a year later, he comes back. They become alive again. So it seems one must be a Jacobin in this country. Is that so? I don't know. And then what happened? Then they gathered again. The Battle of Waterloo. Yes, let's go there. He came to power in Paris. He wrote letters to the rulers of all European states. He said, I want peace. From now on, one peace. And this wasn't the first time he said he wanted peace. Many times he said he is talking with this. How many times? They all had refused. This time he came back and took control of the entire French administration again. He became emperor once more. But they said, we do not accept, they said. And Waterloo? If I'm not mistaken, it has been about 20 years. For the first time in my life, they had invited me to a conference in Belgium. When I went to the conference, where was that place? Ghent. No, I didn't go to Ghent. The first place I went, Brussels. Oh, Ghent. Genk. Antwerp. Where was that place? Kool. Not Hasselt. Kool. I went to a place famous for its coal. Famous for its coal mines. I gave a conference in a city in Belgium. After that, I asked there, is there a historical place here? I asked. They said, Talha, the Battle of Waterloo happened very close by here. So I said, take me there. 20 years ago. And they took me. They took me to the place where the Battle of Waterloo happened. Look, it's not extremely far from Brussels either. There is a city here called Votolo. Let me take you there. By the way, the country of Belgium was established because of Napoleon Bonaparte. Did you know? Look, that's Belgium over there. Normally, Napoleon had conquered all of Europe like that. Napoleon reduces French territory. After Napoleon, European states, they restored them to their former state. So the land increases. This place remains because the Netherlands acted in Napoleon's interests. By the way, pay attention. Belgium is divided into two within itself. See, there's a thin line. Did you see the Walloon region? The northern part, centered around Antwerp that we see here, is Dutch territory. The lower part is French territory. They divided into two. Belgium, look, you can see it better from here. They divide it into two, the Europeans. Divide Belgium. They don't divide it into two. I apologize. I mean, they take half from the Netherlands, half from France. They create a state called Belgium. There is no state called Belgium. There is no race or community. When you go to Belgium, below this line, they speak French. Above this line, they speak Flemish. Still, Belgium is a very interesting country. European Union, Marlborough Union. Why always in Brussels? Because of this. Because it is a state established by Europe, a common state, not the state of a specific nation. That's the reason a state established by Napoleon, it wouldn't be a lie to say so. Napoleon, the man who established many systems in Europe. I mentioned it in my opening speech. We were going to Waterloo. In Waterloo, actually, Napoleon was going to win this battle. Did you know? Let me take you to the exact place. Look, this is the city of Waterloo. This is the city. But the battle took place outside the city. Of course, today's city has grown quite a bit. It has reached up to here. The battle takes place right here. Look, this is where the battle happened. Here, they've built a large pyramid here. You climb up from here by stairs. I've climbed up here twice. Until today, let me show you. You climb up like this from here, all the way to the top. There is a lion statue at the top. You can see it from here, this lion statue. Then there is also a panorama museum over there. Panorama museum. Just like our Istanbul Panorama 1453 museum. Here, like the conquest of Orhan Gazi era panorama museum. You stand in the middle of this 360 degrees. Now, standing in the middle of this, a 360-degree battle. There is no French army over there. Here, you can clearly see the Prussian army and the British army. And you first tour the museum like this. Then you go up to the top. You go up and stand here. There is a balcony here like this. You turn 360 degrees. On this balcony, the French army was over there. No, the Prussian army came from over there. You see the British army. Actually, Napoleon is going to win this battle. But that day, rain. It is also shown in the film. Napoleon's general comes to him. Sir, what are your orders? He says, I order you to stop the rain, he says. He says it as a joke. We can't fight until this rain stops, he says. He waits. Now, Napoleon has come, set up his army here. And England has also come, set up its army. He says, let me deal with the English now. Because he heard that Prussia is coming with its army. He says, let me handle them before they unite with Prussia. And as soon as the rain stops, without looking at the mud, he directly charges at the English army. He charges, but it doesn't work. Why? Because the generals are not listening to him. Secondly, Napoleon is lying in the command tent with a fever of 39 degrees. He is seriously ill. In fact, he is trying hard to postpone the Battle of Waterloo. But they don't listen. They say, let's finish this immediately. They say now. He is seriously ill. Everywhere is muddy. And a few of his generals are not listening to him. By not listening, he loses the battle. He has cavalry. He has an incredible cavalry force. He deploys that cavalry force at the last moment. And the British are really going to handle it. The British are using a square formation tactic. For example, in the movie, that tactic is shown very well. Suddenly, hundreds of British soldiers close ranks with a snap. They interlock. One soldier, the ones in front, have crouched down with bayoneted rifles. The ones above them and above them again. So the ones at the bottom fire first. Then the ones above them. And then the ones above them. While the two above are firing, the ones below reload their rifles. So there is a continuous firefight. And Napoleon Bonaparte is defeated. Yes, we always side with the oppressed. When watching a movie, people say, oh no, he lost. Oh darn, like that. But the man for his seat, I'm talking about the recent period. A man who fights entirely for his seat and power. His last words were, I worked for a beautiful France. He says he wanted a beautiful France, but that's not the case. Of course, this time they bring him down. When they bring him down, they are very afraid of Napoleon. They say, let's exile this man to such a place. They say, why, even if the whole world comes together, they shouldn't be able to rescue him. Where was the first place they exiled him to? It was the land where he was born. So, where was it? It was Elba. He quickly came from Elba and landed in France, away from his own people. They say, let's send him to a place. Look, all these yellow dots you see are scenes related to Napoleon's life. There is one yellow dot that is on the other side of the globe. Look, I have turned the world into a proper globe. We can't see that yellow dot from here right now. Let me rotate the world a bit for you. Look, the yellow dot has appeared. Did you see it? I rotated it. St. Helena Island. That day the English were so terrified that they paid the man, a place that no one can reach. This place, a place where a Frenchman couldn't just get up and come, with the naval power of that day. Imagine a place between Africa and America. Right in the middle of the ocean, St. Louis. Oh, let's go. How he must have scared the English. Oh, Napoleon. So you went there, instead of dealing with the poor Russian, you should have attacked England directly. At least you could have taught a lesson to those English who make the world a cruel place. Oh. Come on, let's go to St. Helena. Yes, look. St. Helena in the middle of the ocean. The island is quite beautiful, you know? Lots of greenery and such. The edges are all rocky. Now I will also show you the house where he stayed. To you, here it is. In St. Helena. In this house, of course, they only allow 2 of his relatives to be with him. By his side, a detachment is left to monitor him. Every moment, every second is tracked. They come to check morning and evening. Is he here or not? Is he here or not? Look, there's a house called Longwood House. This is the house where he lived and died. This is Longwood House. In general, it's quite beautiful, you know? It's quite a mansion, really. They made him live like a king here as well. He lives here. But of course, he can't stand captivity. He lives here for 5 years. They say he died of stomach cancer after 5 years. At the end of 5 years, from stomach cancer, and he dies. Naturally, he is buried here when he dies. Look, it says Napoleon's garden here. Napoleon, as you see, is destitute. In fact, there's even a mosque over there. Do you see it? Look, there's a tiny mosque here. Because it's on the coast of Africa. Unfortunately, Africans also live here. Muslims live here too. Hopefully, we'll go there one day. If it's meant to be, St. Louis Island tour. We'll go, trace Napoleon's footsteps and talk. Yes, this is the island. As you can see, wow, very interesting. Yes. St. Louis, and he dies here. Napoleon Bonaparte. Now, let's talk a bit about Napoleon. He lived on this island for 5 years. Of the house I just showed you. I saw it from the side. He dies. In the mansion in 1821. When he died, he was buried here. For about 20 years after 1821, his remains stayed on this island. By the 1840s in France, this time it's the third Napoleon era. Napoleon's nephew becomes emperor again. As I said, it's in human nature. Oh, we really like this one. Let his son come, his daughter come, let his relatives come. That's how we are. It's a wrong mindset, but such a thing exists. Yes. And Napoleon's remains will be brought to France. They tell the English because the island is an English island. They say, give us the bones of our former leader. Oh no. The English are getting nervous. Why? Let's keep it between us. I say let's keep it between us. I'm saying it live on air. The English are digging up Napoleon's grave sometime after his death because they don't like him at all. They hate Napoleon, not just a little, because he is one of the people who hurt the English the most in history. They hate him. They dug up his grave and destroyed it. As Napoleon's bones, a Corsican buried on that island. You know, a DNA testing profession is done. To ensure it doesn't turn out to be English, they give the bones of a Corsican fisherman to the French. The French, too, the third. Napoleon takes this to his uncle's funeral. There's the Invalides Palace. In Paris, at the Invalides Palace, look, exactly here. I have been here twice. You pay a substantial amount to enter here. Let me speak openly. If the majority of those watching me right now were to go to Paris and come to the Invalides' Palace, you pay separately to enter the Invalides' Palace. You also pay separately to enter Napoleon's tomb. I went years ago. When I went, our currency was much more valuable at that time. So, it really hurt me to pay to enter Napoleon's tomb. It really hurt. I mean, to pay that money with my limited means at that time. Then I went again and entered again. Of course, I didn't recite a prayer for his soul in the end, but I went, saw his tomb, and took photos. As you can see, you can visit it both from below and above. Napoleon's tomb. He is a French national hero to this day. Napoleon Bonaparte. The French people love him very much. So, you really can't speak ill of Napoleon. He is not like Hitler in Germany. And some of France's famous figures were later brought and buried here. Napoleon Bonaparte. Of course, later they conduct a bone analysis. In France, they take a look. Arsenic is found in his bones. Arsenic? Aha, they say, that's it. The English poisoned him. We already knew, they say. But later, it is understood that the bones do not belong to Napoleon, but to someone else. In other words, Napoleon's bones are not in this coffin. Let me tell you, I would like to disappoint you, but there are the bones of another fisherman here. That arsenic is also being investigated in the life of that fisherman. The man committed suicide by drinking arsenic. That's why arsenic is found in his bones. Not even a speck of dust belonging to Napoleon can be found. But of course, this is not told to the people of France, because as you know, masses are lulled or consoled with stories, with leaders from history. The French need this too. And what happens because of this? The treatment continues as if Napoleon's actual funeral is there. Yes, dear history enthusiasts, the time is 11:40 p.m. You have been listening to me for an hour and 40 minutes. Thank you very much. I end up with exactly 3 times the number I started with. The live broadcast, I tried to explain Napoleon Bonaparte to you from A to Z. Who was Napoleon Bonaparte? What kind of person was he? From his childhood to his death, to the point of bringing his bones or the bones claimed to be his into the Invalides. I tried to present a character analysis. So my concern is not to analyze a movie. I also talked about the movie. You got what you needed. But my concern is not to explain a Hollywood movie. These things come and go. But Napoleon's life never fades away. What kind of person was Napoleon? How did he gain power? How did he defeat dozens of United States each time? In a short time. France, look, I mean, in a span of 15 to 20 years, he made France a superpower. How did he achieve this? Because he started to change with himself. I tried to explain these to you at length in this video, but then how did he become a dictator due to power intoxication? How did he ruin and destroy the country he elevated to the peak? Here, we actually see the analysis of a very instructive figure. There are so many lessons to be learned from Napoleon's life, both for ourselves, personally, and for our families, communities, and our state. May God grant us the ability to learn lessons and to act wisely and properly for the sake of humanity with the lessons we learn. To all of you, I wish you a good night. Goodbye for now.